Hello everyone, it might be sudden. But have you ever thought about what sex is? In most living beings, there are males and females, and in humans, we engage in sexual reproduction, where eggs and sperm unite, giving rise to children and descendants. Reproduction comes in two types: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction involves creating a duplicate of oneself, often referred to as cloning. Organisms like amoebas, green algae, rotifers, sea anemones, jellyfish, insects, and mites, which are more ancient in evolutionary history, tend to favor asexual reproduction. On the flip side, including us humans as vertebrates, asexual reproduction isn't very prominent, at least among the organisms we encounter in our daily lives. Whether they're plants or animals, sexual reproduction, which involves having genders, is more prevalent. But if you ponder why there's this presence of male and female genders, doesn't it seem a bit intriguing? Purely from the perspective of multiplying, asexual reproduction is more efficient. The presence of males isn't necessary. One can split oneself or produce eggs with one's own copied genes for reproduction. However, while the efficiency of multiplying is highest this way, because you're repeating the copy of the same set of genes, there's no variation among the increased individuals. If the environment remains stable, it's no issue. But if the environment deteriorates, water quality worsens, temperatures rise, or there's a shortage of food, every individual may not adapt, leading to extinction. Looking back at Earth's history, it's believed that asexual reproduction was predominant in the early stages of life. However, with every change in the Earth's environment, a selection process occurred. Those asexual reproduction organisms unable to adapt perished, while adaptive individuals from the more labor-intensive sexual reproduction group survived. Throughout this history, it's considered that organisms with sexes became prevalent among higher life forms. The ultimate factor that led to the existence of sex was shuffling genes to enhance diversity. Asexual reproduction results in individuals with the same genes, leading to a lack of diversity. Consequently, the probability of extinction, due to an inability to endure environmental changes, is high. While organisms undergoing asexual reproduction can experience genetic mutations, i.e., DNA copy errors, the frequency is extremely low and cannot keep up with rapid environmental changes. Amidst this, the strategy devised by organisms was sexual reproduction, exchanging genes between individuals to create new gene sets. The Red Queen hypothesis emerges as an evolutionary principle for sexual reproduction, suggesting that organisms must keep evolving. Named after the Red Queen in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, who runs continuously to stay in the same place. It reflects the continuous adaptation needed in the ever-changing natural environment. The birth of life itself is considered a series of miracles, based on the latest research data. One theory is the giant impact hypothesis. Approximately 4.55 billion years ago, a colossal event occurred when a star the size of Mars collided with the newly formed Earth. This collision carved out a part of the Earth, forming a satellite that orbits Earth. The Moon. The Earth and Moon, initially molten magma due to the impact, gradually cooled. Between 4.3 billion and 4 billion years ago, rain began on Earth, giving rise to oceans. Throughout this time, countless meteorites continued to fall on Earth, bringing organic materials like amino acids into the seas, serving as the building blocks of life. Back then, the Moon orbited much closer to Earth, causing intense gravitational forces that created turbulent waves in the seas. Within these undulations, molecules dissolved in the sea combined, generating a substance known as nucleic acid, which forms the basis of DNA. Amidst the numerous bubbles persistently drifting along the shoreline due to high waves, this nucleic acid substance was incorporated, concentrated, and linked in a chain, resulting in the accidental synthesis of DNA. This DNA possessed the ability to create its own copies, becoming the core of life. The initial life forms were simple units within membranes, creating only copies of DNA. Eventually, a system evolved, where proteins were synthesized from DNA information. This led to the creation of containers for DNA, called cells from proteins, giving birth to single-celled organisms. At this point, competition for reproduction between cells commenced, a competition where those leaving more copies emerged victorious, introducing the fundamental principle of life. To be precise, the competition between DNA had already started from the moment DNA was born. However, with the emergence of single-celled organisms, the competition between genes shifted to the competition between organisms. It's important to note that when we talk about competition, there isn't intentionality in genes or cells. It's merely a consequential outcome where those who replicated first and consumed resources survived. The repetition of copying in the chemical reaction of DNA itself was a coincidental occurrence. As time passed, single-celled organisms joined together, giving rise to multicellular organisms. These multicellular organisms underwent repeated transformations, evolving into organisms with more complex structures, whether single-celled or multicellular. Initially, they reproduced through asexual reproduction. However, a predicament emerged at this point. As organisms advanced, evolved parasites, such as viruses and bacteria, began infiltrating cells to extract energy. For the host, having energy siphoned off naturally reduces the efficiency of reproduction. Therefore, cellular organisms, as hosts, also evolved to prevent the extraction of their energy. For example, they toughened the cell's shell to make it difficult for parasites to invade, and developed the immune system to resist invasion. Parasites, in turn, attempted to overcome these defenses by altering their own structures, initiating an evolutionary arms race between them and the hosts. This is referred to as Red Queen coevolution. During this period, smaller parasites with simpler DNA structures and faster generational turnovers had an advantage. Novel parasitic methods were continuously devised, making it challenging for hosts to keep up with evolution. The swift evolution of parasites poses a significant environmental change, crucial for the host's survival of their own copies. In response to this constant environmental change, hosts developed a groundbreaking strategy: gene exchange among hosts, namely sexual reproduction. Through this method, enhancing the diversity of genes within the host population prevented the proliferation of parasites, increasing the likelihood of leaving descendants for each host organism. However, at the time sexual reproduction emerged, the distinction between male and female did not exist. For instance, the single-celled organism Volvox primarily reproduces asexually. But after several rounds of cell division, individuals join together, exchanging their genes. This process is considered a precursor to sexual reproduction. Volvox lacks a distinction between male and female, and the exchange occurs between individuals with different genes. After the union, separated Volvox individuals repeat cloning through cell division. In multicellular organisms, gene exchange via simple cell-to-cell connections, as seen in Volvox, becomes more challenging. Consequently, they evolved a reproductive mechanism, where reproductive cells carrying half of their genetic set are produced internally and fused with reproductive cells from another individual, giving rise to descendants with a new genetic set. This is the evolution of the reproductive method known as fertilization, where sperm and egg fuse. Here, another question arises: why did two types of reproductive cells, sperm and egg, evolve? This is indeed the origin of sexual differentiation. As organisms become more complex and advanced, the process of growth takes longer. The period from the fusion of gametes, initiating cell division, to the development of an individual is called embryonic development. However, this process requires nutrients. Absorbing nutrients from the external environment increases the risk of growth failure due to environmental factors. Hence, eggs evolved as gametes, storing nutrients needed for embryonic development until the organism is formed. On the other hand, eggs, due to nutrient storage, lead to larger individual sizes, making it challenging to produce them in large quantities. In other words, there is a limit to the number produced per cycle. With fewer numbers, the probability of gametes encountering each other decreases. To address this, specialized gametes capable of producing in abundance evolved by reducing their size. This is the evolution of sperm. Furthermore, these small gametes acquired motility to increase the chance of encountering the larger and less mobile egg. In this way, two types of gametes, eggs and sperm, were born, leading to the emergence of females and males as individuals specialized in producing each. As organisms evolved and became more complex, morphological and functional differences between females and males continued to grow. This is referred to as sexual dimorphism. In higher animals, functional constraints led to a further differentiation between females and males. In the case of humans, females bear children, while males engage in hunting. As roles became more specialized, the physical differences between females and males increased.